Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's episode we're going to be taking a look at this Stihl saw. Let's try and pull this out and get it on the bench. So here we have the Stihl TS400. As you can see, it's in pretty rough condition, but I picked this up, spares repairs. The guy says that basically he kind of got it started. He thinks the pot and piston's gone. Nothing. It's very wet inside, so I'm guessing that's a lot of corrosion. That's a serious amount of corrosion. So I wonder if he's trying to free the piston rings up. But I'll be honest, like when I picked this up, I knew this was a spares repairs. I just assumed the piston was shot, or the top end was shot. Because what happens with these is people run them without putting oil in, because you're supposed to mix oil with fuel. But the amount of corrosion in there, I wonder if it's had no plug-in and it's just been left. The next step would be to get the head off. Remove the piston, and if the rod's moving up and down and the bottom end looks okay, we'll go ahead and pick up a new pot and piston. But only if it's just the top end. If the bottom end's completely knackered, then I don't think there's going to be much life for this, unfortunately. Should we check the fuel? See if there's any water in the fuel. Now it's being mixed, and you can usually tell when people pre-mix because the fuel changes colour. It gives it that reddish colour. We have 0 water, so that looks perfectly fine. It smells fine, so I think that's actually probably quite fresh. Oh, so it's not what I thought it was. I was hoping to empty this fuel tank and see just regular fuel, regular petrol, and that would give me some assurance that that was a problem. Someone's just literally not putting any two-stroke oil in, but they clearly have. There's probably an order to take this to bits, but I don't know it. So I guess we'll just keep working our way through the layers until we get to what we need. That normally goes under that, so someone's, for whatever reason, has done that. Not too sure why they've done that for, but they've done it. There's one down here. The handle might come off because there'll be a lever down the front here which you can usually unhook. Yeah, so there's a hook there. Usually it just pulls out. There we go. And there's normally a little clip you can hook this onto so it doesn't fall down. That might be a TS400 though. There we go. Yeah, so on the TS400s there's like a little notch. You can kind of push this in, just stops it from falling down. That is your carburetor. Now your adjustment screws, and as you can see it's just a complete mess. Fuel lines look okay, that's a good sign. The choke, that's all moving, so the actual carburetor side, the back end side, seems to be okay. Just the top end, I'm hoping. The exhaust is actually still attached, which is quite nice because that normally breaks off from one of the mounts at the top. Usually one of the top ones breaks off and the bottom one breaks loose and it just rattles. So that's a good sign. Let's take off side cover because we need to get this off. Oh no, that's separate. Give this a go. in a right mess. A lot of people yell at me, Warner, what are you doing that for? You don't need to do that, you just need to remove these 6 screws and move that bar and the whole thing drops out. Probably true. I don't know. I just don't know. So, get this all the way out. Well, it hasn't overheated because there's no sign of melting around here. Usually it would melt at the top here, so that's looking good. What is that? It's a bit of carpet. Obviously, if you're going to do this yourself, put the plug back in, but I'm pretty sure this is shot, so I'm not bothered. But that is just me. So what do I need? Exhaust probably needs to come off because the exhaust will be bolted at the top and at the bottom, I would imagine. Oh God, I'll stay that. Super tight. That's one. I can't get in there with that one. The exhaust is bolted at the top, took the bottom one out, so there shouldn't really be anything holding this in place. Get rid of that. I think the carb will probably need a rebuild. If not, it will at least go on the ultrasonic cleaner, that's for sure. Yeah, this head looks way too clean. This is probably been replaced already by the looks of it. Oh. Yeah, it's pretty tight. Just gonna nip this back down. Feel hoses seem perfect. They're nice and soft and pliable. They're not brittle and hard, so that's a good sign. What I want to do basically is just try and turn this. Oh, there she goes. Stuck. Alright, she's stuck there. Now there's a lot of corrosion, so there's a very good chance, even if I did get a full rotation, I think we're going to have to replace the top end anyway. Oh, dear. Now, if the piston's free, which it is, why is it stuck? Going up, maybe, yeah, because it could be corrosion and rust, but going down, it should be clean. So it could be the bottom end. Actually, haven't done that now, so see, I was using a breaker bar. That's still really tight to turn. It's got a bit of play, so just a screw back here. You can see because this is in the way, but just unthread this. There we go. So the only thing stopping it now should be the piston. Let's try and get this off. I wonder if it was catching on that. Here she comes. I would normally say take it off nice and slowly and straight, but oh. Right, I'll get this pull start off. I reckon that's why this wasn't on properly, because of been trying to turn the engine with this. let's see, I've put the head back on. Absolutely doused it at WD-40. Oh. Right, it's quarter turn. It's quarter turn. Oh, that's tight there. There she goes. And the pistons come back up. And is it gonna go? Is it gonna go? Oh, it's going back down. There we go. Right, let's see what we get now. Getting better. Can you hear that? And I think that's because the piston's halfway down when this was stored, and inside was quite a bit of corrosion. So I think it's just basically wearing its way through all that corrosion. Now I have got a boring tool, so I could clean out the inside of the cylinder, and that probably would fix my issue. I could lube up the bottom end. Maybe take the rings off, give the rings a clean up. It's getting better. So let's try it with a drill. As you can see in the bottom, it's absolutely full of WD-40, which has turned a lovely mucky colour. So there's obviously plenty of rust in there, but that's all moving perfectly fine now. The piston won't rock, it won't pivot. It's pretty solid. It will if you give it some, but it's very tight. So that isn't obviously correct. I'm not too sure actually, I might reuse this. It is a genuine Stihl one, probably came from the factory with this head on, and there's a bit of wear at the top. There's a bit of shine, a bit of haze to it, but I could rehome this, or I could just use it as it is. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think the head will be fine. It was all rusted at the top, but as you can see, after using the drill and the hand, it's taken it all off. So I think this could be saved. So it's been a few days, the piston has arrived. I also picked up a small end bearing. I have a new filter set, that's all the free filters, and a spark plug. But before I start getting all this thing back together again, I'm going to take this outside and pressure wash it down, get all the dirt and grime off it, because it's just making a complete mess. No matter what I touch, everything I move, it bits fall off it. So I'm going to give it a good clean and I'll come back to you. I've been leaving this soak also, so that's absolutely full of WD-40, so I'll drain it out first before I go and give it a clean. So I think that's in a much better condition than what it was in before. It's more manageable now. Now when I actually work on stuff, I'm not going to have a pile of dust and dirt and grime behind afterwards. So I think the next step is to remove the carb. There's a good chance the carb's okay, but the fact that I've just pressure washed this whole entire thing, there's a very high chance that water's either going that way or this way. So I'll take it off, give it a clean. I'll put it in the ultrasonic cleaner just for good measure. So yeah, let's get this off. I think that'll do. So I think I'll leave all this in place and I'll literally just put the whole thing like this in the cleaner. So that's clean enough for me. So now it's time to reassemble. Everything's nice and smooth, everything's nice and clean. I've blew it all out with air and I've used carb cleaner. So I mean, and generally these little carb cleaner is all you need. A blaster carb cleaner is perfectly fine. So carb cleaner, ultrasonic cleaner, and air through the passages is perfectly fine. So let's reassemble. Now this is a cheap carb, and to be truthful, you can probably pick these up for £10–15. These rebuild kits are probably £3 or £4, maybe £5 delivered. So really, if this doesn't work, I'll just buy a new carb. I'm not gonna, if this was an original Stihl carb, I would put the money and time into it. It's flexible. It's got a slight click in this little corner here. You can just hear it if you put pressure. When it starts clicking is when you usually replace them, but I don't have any kicking about, so I'm going to do the wrong thing and put it back together. And I'll probably regret this because I can't recall ever reusing a carb kit. If I get this stage, I usually just, you know, put a new kit in. They're pretty cheap to buy, but like I say, with it being a copy, I'm not that fussed. So let's get this back together and hopefully get it back into the Stihl saw. So let's get the high-speed needle back in. And the idle. And screw these all the way down. And give it 4 turns out. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the default setting for these is 1 turn, so if they've backed it out in 1/8 of a turn, they've made it a bit more richer having this. So let's do what they did. That's 1, and about there. We can adjust that. I mentioned before the reason why I bought the filters. Now, I mean, if you're going to do this, you're probably best off changing the filters, because these saws do go through a rough life, and as you can see, these are pretty gross. And the air filter, the main one, absolutely soaking wet, and it is just full of dust, which, because it's wet, has turned to like a clay. So they are for the bin. I'm going to put these in. So that is the air filter all installed. So other than the pre-filter and the box that goes over the rear, that side of the engine is pretty much intact and complete. So now it's down to the piston. So as you can see, this was left soaking, and this is spinning over fine. As you can see, nice and smooth. So I'm going to lube this up and then reassemble the top of the piston. This is the old piston, and that is completely shot. The rings are stuck, they're seized, there's loads of corrosion, and they've worn down to the point where they're almost flush with the cylinder. So that is junk. We've cleaned the head out, and this is ready to go back on. I've scuffed up the inside, so that should be fine. and that goes on that way. Let's drop the screws in first, so I don't forget, because sometimes they get stuck. They're a pain if the head's on to get them actually in place. There we go. And these two, quite easy. So that's ready. Simple as that. So you gotta make sure there's like a little groove, like a U, like when you put it together, it's like half a circle, and that's gonna tally up to that. So let's put this one on first. Knock that down there. The second one, this will be much easier to put on. Has to line up here. That one goes like that, so if you work it out, but when it's pushed together, they join up and that half circle is met by a little pin, and that stops the ring from basically rotating. So we need to make sure that one's there and that one's there when we put it together. I bought a new bearing, because this one I have lubricated and I've got it all rolling again, but there's loads of flat spots on it, so that's junk. Not to mention, getting that out was a right pain. It took quite a lot of force, to say the least, and that is much better. And that should fit in there like so. Look at that. I mean, that was not possible. In fact, I'll show you. With the other one, just won't fit. Absolutely what? I mean, you can get that in, but once you put the bearing in, you can't get that in. So it just, that's junk. I've checked the other bearings, these are perfectly fine, there's no put it up or down. There's a bit left to right, but that's fine. So, because this is all clean, get that down there. I'm doing the bearings at either side of the shaft. Better. Just put a bit in the middle there. Perfect. Let's get that in. Should be fine. Let's put a bit not much, just a bit while we're at. Everything is so slippery. A bit tight actually getting that in. Let's put a bit of grease on that. It's better. Straight through. and rotate it around so you can't see the two ends. There we go. Just pull this intake over, and that should fold back on. Like so. Now it's a case of bolting it back down. So I forgot something, so I'm going to take this back off, put this back on, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I've got the head installed. I'll tighten these down properly in a second, but as you can see, nice and smooth, no weird noises, so I'm happy with that. So basically now it's time to reassemble. So what I'm going to do is go away, I'm going to fit this clamp, fit the panels, fit the coil, fit the air filter, and basically just button everything up, and I'll come back to you when we're in a position where we can try and pull this thing over. Okay, so the saw is pretty much back together, so we're at a position now where we can check for spark. Now, I must confess, I did check the coil when it was off, and I got some very weird resistance from it, so I think the coil is knackered. Unfortunately, I only tested it today, so I didn't get a chance to order a replacement coil, but we'll put a new plug on, and hopefully it'll give us some spark. This isn't touching anywhere. If this was grounding out, see this wire here goes to this, so that's the chassis and that's touching the chassis. So if that was touching that, we wouldn't get a spark, but this isn't touching anything, so technically this should spark. So let's give it a go. So we're now at the point where I think I can take this thing outside and give it a few pulls and see what happens, and hopefully this doesn't go bang and the carb doesn't start squirting fuel everywhere, and if it does run, hopefully this kills the engine. So let's go and test it out. to make some adjustments. Basically I had to put this top back on. I could mess about with the idle screw and I could turn it in further so that it would have a higher idle so that it would turn over, because basically when you start this machine you need to put it in the start mode and then leave go the trigger, and basically all that does is pull the trigger in halfway, which applies tension to this wire here, which then pulls the throttle up. So it just gives it a bit of throttle basically, and once the machine's running you pull the trigger and it goes to run mode, and then you get your normal throttle control. Now you can counteract this by turning the idle screw, and the further you turn it in the higher the more throttle it'll give the carb. But I didn't want to mess about with the settings on that, and then have it, if it get running, then reassemble all this and then readjust the settings again. There's a few more things I need to do. One is I'm going to purchase the cap for this. I'm going to pick up a blade, and the most important thing is the pull cord. So that's not going to work, is it? Basically when you release it gets stuck and you're losing a bit of your pull, but it's just, it needs replacing, because one day you'll pull this and it'll just snap. So pick one of these, pick up a cover for this. These are quite common, these come off all the time, they're quite cheap to pick up. Pick up a disc, and then we can get this run, get up to temp, adjust the low needle valve, and this should be a run finished machine. So there you go, I've replaced the pull start, put the new cap on, and this thing is ready to go, ready for work. It needs a new blade. The blade is still in the post, unfortunately it hasn't turned up yet. I think it's fair to say this didn't have much life left in it. It was pretty much on its last legs, so that's been replaced. So yeah, we'll call this one done. There's not much more I can do, like I say, other than the blade, but that is in the post. So yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the content. Hopefully this has helped some of you guys out. If it has, then do please let me know down below. If you like this kind of content, then please do check out my other videos, and while you're there, if you subscribe to the channel, that'll be fantastic. And if not, I will catch you later. Bye.